Perfect. So welcome everyone. Again, if you haven't already, please feel free to share your name, where you're signing in from, and your major or degree in the chat box. We'll get that chat going. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Essential Business Skills Elevator Pitch virtual event. And we're featuring our employer partner and sales development consulting firm, memoryBlue. Thank you so much to our guests from memoryBlue for being here. Please keep your cameras and mics off for the session so we can focus our attention on the presenter. There will be an opportunity to engage later on. We'll have a little break where you can raise your hand and we'll ask for some volunteers to give an example of an elevator pitch. So that'll come later on this evening. And to introduce myself, I'm Dana McGrath. I'm an employer relations partner with the SNHU Career Services team. I'm joined this evening by my wonderful colleague and SNHU Career Advisor, Jessica Erb, who will be engaging in the chat and gathering those questions that you might have throughout the session so we can address those after our initial presentation. So be sure to keep those questions coming in the chat throughout. And first, we do want to let you know your experience at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify. Online students can notify the Online Accessibility Center at oac@snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. Campus students can reach the Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And any staff or faculty in attendance can reach the Human Resource Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. And of course, keep in mind that SNHU Career Services are a lifetime benefit included in your SNHU journey and beyond. The team provides career support and guidance from resume reviews, mock interview practice, job and internship search techniques, and so much more. So you can reach out to cocecareer@snhu.edu or call 888-672-1458 to schedule time with an SNHU career advisor. We also encourage you to explore the Handshake career platform. You may have found the event tonight on Handshake that has great networking and job opportunities. And also take advantage, flex those networking skills with the array of social network outlets that we have. And you can connect with fellow SNHU students and alumni nationwide. Thanks everyone for tuning into those little housekeeping notes. So now without further ado, I would like everyone to meet memoryBlue Managing Director, Gia De Choudens. Thank you so much, Gia, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so I'm excited. Can everyone see that, by the way?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I'm excited to talk to you all about elevator pitches, what makes a successful one, why it's so important, as well as just a little bit of memoryBlue overview. So by way of agenda today, I want to introduce myself, a little bit about my background, then definitely want to touch on what makes a successful elevator pitch, the key elements to have a successful elevator pitch. I'm going to go over an example. We're going to jump into a little bit of an activity to get some examples going. Then I'm going to go into a memoryBlue overview and, of course, leave time at the end for any questions you have on anything that I've presented today or on anything about myself. So by way of introduction, my name is Gia De Choudens. I am the managing director of the memoryBlue Boston office. So memoryBlue actually has 6 different offices across the United States. We are headquartered in Tysons, Virginia. So that's our DC office. We have a Boston office, an Austin, Texas office, a Seattle, Washington, Denver, Colorado, San Jose, California, and those are the 6. And so I actually started in the Denver office, but I'm originally from Danville, California. I got a bachelor in communication studies and a minor in political science from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. And I graduated in 2021, and I've been with memoryBlue ever since. Pretty quick career trajectory at memoryBlue. As you can see, I was an SDR for 7 months. I quickly became a delivery manager from there, and I was a manager for 1.8 years. And like I mentioned, I actually started out of the Denver office, so I lived in Denver for about 2 years. Just moved here to take over the Boston office. But in my time at memoryBlue, I've successfully managed over 30 clients. Currently, I'm managing about 30 in the Boston office by itself. And I'm currently managing an office of 40. So I've got SDRs underneath me, delivery managers underneath me. We also have a heavy account executive presence in Boston. So it's been a really fun, exciting challenge to grow in my career. 2 years, 2.5 years removed from graduating. So. As we jump into it, first, I just want to talk about what is an elevator pitch. I'm sure many of you know, but an elevator pitch is a brief, persuasive speech or statement that summarizes who you are, what you do, and why your idea is valuable or why you would be a good asset to somebody's team. The term elevator pitch comes from the idea that you should be able to deliver this pitch in the time that it takes to ride an elevator with someone. So ideally, it takes about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Now, why is an elevator pitch so important? I'm going to give you two big reasons, but in your professional career, as well as just in general, it's so important to have a good understanding of how to deliver a concise elevator pitch. The first element being for recruiting. So I'm sure you're all looking for that job straight out of college, or maybe you're looking for an internship right now. But I can guarantee, like, 9 times out of 10, the first question for an interview is going to be, hey, take 60 seconds and tell me a little bit about yourself. It's interesting because I was in your shoes not that long ago, maybe just under 3 years ago. And now I actually recruit for a living, interview people for a living. And so that's always my first question. Take 60 seconds, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I can't tell you how many times I've written down much longer than 60 seconds. So you want to be short, concise, deliver some highlights from your career or what you're looking for. If you don't have highlights, that's totally fine, especially if you're looking at an entry-level job. But what are some of your strengths? Why would you be an asset to a team? And then the second piece is just for your professional career in general. Whenever delivering an email or having a conversation and leading a session, you want to make sure that you're concise. Conciseness is super critical in your professional career. In my day-to-day now, I talk to clients day in and day out. Oftentimes, I'm talking to CEOs, co-founders, CROs. Those C-level people are very bottom line oriented. You're probably catching them in back-to-back meetings. They've made 30 minutes to chat with you. And so one rule of thumb that we use at memoryBlue is give me the bluff. And so bluff is BLUF, and that stands for bottom line upfront. What is the bottom line upfront? What are you getting at? What's the issue? What do you need to tackle it? And you'll be a lot more successful in your career if you can be really concise and start asking yourself, hey, what's the bluff? Now managing managers, that's something I use all the time. I will ask them, hey, what are you getting at? Give me the bluff. Okay, great. Here are the tools to fix it. Go solve it. Let me know if you have any questions. So mastering an elevator pitch will help you a lot just throughout your professional career in general. So let's talk about elements of a good elevator pitch. As I mentioned, it needs to be short. So think 30 seconds to 2 minutes tops. I know I said we said take 60 seconds. To be honest, if they go to 2 minutes, that's totally fine. But you don't want to be rambling on for 5 minutes. So again, think about a short elevator ride. How long would that take? And that's about as short as that elevator pitch should be. You want to make it personalized. Obviously, it needs to be about you. It needs to be about your experience, especially when entering an entry-level role. Don't be afraid to give a little bit about just your passions, what you like to do outside of work. We definitely, for our recruiting, we like to know who you are as an individual as well as a professional, because culture is an important element of working well in a team as well. You want to make it interesting, so make sure you include some highlights, and you want to deliver it with confidence. If you don't sound sure of what you want, then I don't think that employer is going to be sure that you're the right fit for the role. So if I can give you one piece of advice for all interviews you go into, I want you to act like that is the job that you want, and that is how you should be approaching this interview. Because interviews go both ways. So it should include an introduction, a summary of your background. So you want to highlight your achievements, overall, why you're a good fit for the role, and then some sort of call to action. So here's an example of my elevator pitch, but obviously I'm not looking for a role right now. So this would be if I'm looking to connect with people, continuing to grow my network. This is what I would use it for, but it goes, hello, I'm Gia De Choudens, and I'm proud to be part of the memoryBlue team. I started my journey here as a sales development representative, and my passion for driving results and achieving excellence has guided me through an incredible progression. For my first 7 months as an SDR, I consistently exceeded expectations, averaging an impressive 170% quota attainment. After 7 months as an SDR, I transitioned to the role of delivery manager for 1.8 years. Over this period, I led my team to consistent success with an average quota attainment of 90%. My focus on coaching and mentoring helped drive their achievements. As a testament to my commitment and impact, I was promoted to a managing director, and in this role, I'm dedicated to steering the company toward even greater heights and helping our talented team succeed. I'm incredibly passionate about developing talent and fostering a culture of excellence. My journey at memoryBlue has given me a deep understanding of our industry, our clients, and the importance of strategic leadership. I look forward to connecting with you and potentially exploring ways we can work together or exchange valuable experiences. So overall, it highlights the bulk of my achievements. Ideally, if I'm talking to a hiring manager or somebody who I'm trying to connect with, I'm adding legitimacy to who I am, my experience right off the bat. And that delivery took me about, I'm assuming, a minute and a half or so to deliver at a pace that was comfortable and delivered with confidence. So I want to do a little activity. I want you all to take the next 5 minutes to draft an elevator pitch about yourself, your achievements, and what the goal of your elevator pitch would be. I'm assuming for most of you, it would be some sort of hiring thing, but even if it's just to make some connections, take 5 minutes to think about it, and then we will circle back and see if anybody wants to share.
For anyone just jumping in, just so you're aware, we are taking that next 5 minutes for people to think about a draft of an elevator pitch. So it's up on the screen, but just in case you're just jumping in and wondering why it's silent now, we're taking that break so people can work on an elevator pitch example. And we may ask for some possible volunteers. Thank you.
All right, so we're just about at 5 minutes here. Would any brave souls like to volunteer to share their elevator pitch?
Feel free to raise your hand. There should be a raised hand feature, and we can call on you and turn your camera and mic on if you'd like. All right. Oh, we had one. All right, wonderful. So I have Krishna as a volunteer. Krishna, I'm going to go ahead and enable your camera and mic, so bear with me one moment, and we'd love to hear your example. Well, I think, did you put your hand down? There we go. Perfect. So you should
Hello,
be able to
everyone.
turn that on. There we go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Krishna Nordstrom. I'm originally from India, moved to the US about 6 years ago. I have about 10 years of experience in hotel management, and since COVID, I took a career change and went into tech. I started as a customer success manager or an account manager, and I've worked my way up to director of customer success. I started my bachelor's just about 3 weeks ago, actually, to further my growth in my career and gain more specialized knowledge. I'm looking to connect, and potentially find a better opportunity that fits my continuing studies.
Perfect, Krishna. That was great, short, concise, delivered with confidence, and gave me a lot of good background as to who you are. Really good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, looks like we might have one more.
All right, Timothy, I believe I just made you a presenter, so you should be able to turn your mic and camera on.
I'm Timothy, and I'm not your typical college graduate. I had to learn things the hard way. I didn't go to college right after high school, and I spent most of my adult life working 2 jobs because high school diploma didn't pay the bills. When my son was born in October of 2015, I was working 75 hours a week between 2 jobs. I knew I didn't want to tell my son I couldn't attend something because I had to work like I did my daughter when she was younger. 2 tax checks and a refinance of my house, and I finally started Ivy Tech in February 2018 at 48 years old. I received my associate's degree with magna cum laude in August of 2020, and I have been working on my bachelor's degree since. I'm still working just as hard, it's just my feet don't hurt as bad.
Thank you, Timothy. All right. Well, we can go ahead and shift gears. Thank you both for sharing. I hope the rest of you drafted an elevator pitch to continue to use as well. And this is a super important skill, no matter where you go after this. So let's jump into a little bit about memoryBlue. So what memoryBlue is we are a sales development consulting firm. Essentially what we do is we partner exclusively with high-tech clients that want to outsource their sales development efforts. So sometimes the clients we work with are startups who maybe are still in stealth mode, working to get into their go-to-market strategy, and they use us as a part of that. Sometimes we work with household names that just want to supplement their internal sales. Maybe they have some aggressive goals to meet, and they want to use memoryBlue as a partner for that. So some of our clients include Oracle, IBM, Splunk, AWS, Zoom, and again, a lot of startups as well, but exclusively B2B high-tech companies. And so essentially the role we're constantly recruiting for is the SDR role. And so what that entails is if an SDR joins our organization, they're doing outreach on behalf of their high-tech client. So let's say they come work with us and their client is Oracle. They're doing outreach on behalf of Oracle. On their LinkedIn, it says they work at Oracle, and they're booking meetings directly with the Oracle team. And I'm going to jump into a little bit of things that make memoryBlue different as well. So one really unique element about memoryBlue is our training. So our training starts with a 3-day sales intensive boot camp out of our HQ office. So you can see this picture on the left here. All of those people are in our DC office learning the basic, what we call prospecting principles. So how to make a cold call, what goes into a cold call, the different elements, and all the basics in order to be successful. From there, you're put in a 6-week sales intensive training, which we call memoryBlue Academy, where you're learning just the fundamentals of what it takes to be a successful SDR. However, training does not stop there. I like to say that we live and breathe training at memoryBlue, so we really, really love to develop and grow. We like to hire like-minded individuals that are constantly wanting to level up in their game. And so we are training every single day. We live and breathe feedback. You're getting feedback from your manager all the time. We have company training once a week where all of the SDRs in our company hop on a Zoom line, and one of the delivery managers out of any of our 6 offices teaches on some sort of micro topic. We have call evaluation sessions. So we live and breathe training here. We do it all the time, constant little micro trainings. We really think it's important that you're fully continuing to get developed throughout your entire time at memoryBlue. Another unique thing about memoryBlue is our culture. So we love to hire people straight out of school. We think that they usually come with the freshest eyes, if you will, people that want to work hard. But of course, you don't need to be straight out of school. Even if you're just transitioning, you want to break into sales, that works too. One of the most successful SDRs we had, for example, was somebody who was a teacher for a long time and then shifted into the role. We've had people who were chefs before this and switched into the role. So one of the things that we love is instilling a culture of work hard, play hard. And so we like to say that we work on goal time, not clock time. We'll constantly put incentives on the line to get out of work early. You can see the Boston office here. You can see on the right here is actually the Denver office. This was a kickball league that we did. The picture in the middle here is our TOPS trip, which most sales organizations have what they call a President's Club trip. They do it once a year and they take the top maybe 10% of performers on an all expenses paid vacation. Well, with memoryBlue's business model, what we actually do is we go twice a year and we take the top 50% of SDRs. So it's 200 plus salespeople in Mexico. Definitely one of the highlights of my time at memoryBlue. Additionally, another benefit we offer is you can see on the left here, someone has a picture with a Tech Sales is for Hustlers shirt. If we have anybody from Virginia, that's a play on Virginia is for Lovers. But once you hit 1 year with memoryBlue, we give you $3,000 to take a trip wherever you want, and we call that the 3K holiday. So we love to have a really fun culture. If you're curious to learn more about our culture, definitely check out our social media. The last thing that makes us really unique is our growth paths. So at memoryBlue, we have 5 growth paths. The first one is getting hired out by your client. So my first slide showed the clients that we work with. One thing that makes us really unique is if you're killing it for your client and they want you to join their internal team, at memoryBlue, we don't discourage that. We actually encourage that. So this is a really unique way to break into the tech space, even if you don't have a degree directly involved in tech, or you just want to be in this lucrative field. And so if you'd like to get hired out by your client, that's definitely an option for you. And that can happen really at any time within your tenure. The second path, obviously the one I hold near and dear to my heart, is being promoted to a delivery manager. So rather than being an SDR, you manage a team of SDRs and you manage a book of business. The third path is our talent team. So you can join our talent team, become a recruiter, be that liaison between the hiring manager and the candidate. And I like to say that if you join our talent team, rather than selling a product, you're selling an opportunity. So that's how you use those sales skills in that role. The fourth one is our sales team. So one unique thing about memoryBlue is you can go straight from being an SDR to being an account executive about 1 year into your role. At most tech companies, it's going to take you about 2, 3, maybe 4 years of being an SDR before you're going to be considered for that account executive role. But because we live and breathe training at memoryBlue, we actually expedite that process. So if you'd like to be an account executive and join our sales team, that's an option as well. And then the fifth one is our Rising Stars program. So memoryBlue asks for a 15-month commitment out of all of our SDRs. But at the end of those 15 months, we actually spruce up your resume, create a brag book of everything you've done in the last 15 months with us, and pair you with our direct hire recruiters who are going to facilitate interviews for you and help you set up that next role. And that's our Rising Stars program. And that's essentially a high-level overview of what memoryBlue is. So I'd like to take the rest of this time to answer any questions you have for myself, for an elevator pitch, or memoryBlue in general.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Gia. If we can get a virtual round of applause for Gia and her little workshop practice and being able to hear more about the amazing memoryBlue careers. So thank you again, Gia, for sharing that. And I know Jess, Herb, I'd love to have you come back on camera if you'd like, if we've had any questions, or if students want to start sending questions in the chat, and Jess would be happy to help facilitate that.
Yes. Yes, so go ahead and post some questions in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll make sure we get to all your questions. I see one question in here, and that is, do you have any remote positions?
So we actually don't have any remote positions because of the rigorous training that we have, and really just the business model our co-founders believe in. We work fully in office. I will say though, most positions you would have after memoryBlue are typically some sort of remote or hybrid position.
And where are your locations?
Yeah, so we have locations in Seattle, Washington, San Jose, California, Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado, DC, and Boston.
Perfect. And how many total employees work at memoryBlue?
That's a good question. I would say right now I'd put us in that 300, 400 range, but we recently acquired a company, and so we've about doubled in size through that.
Perfect. And what is a common challenge for new employees, and what advice would you give to overcome this challenge?
I would say a common challenge is motivation and just how challenging it can be to be in sales in general. I would say the double-edged sword of being in sales is that you get out what you put into it. It's very much a grind. I think sometimes it can be hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is usually that next role, that step up after the SDR role. That's why we do things like the 3K holiday, the TOPS trip. But if you choose to have a career in sales, the double-edged sword of it is that you can hit your quota, you're probably going to be on this big high, but September 1st, that clock restarts and your quota resets. So it's this constant kind of like push and pull. As far as how you get through it, I think it's a mind game, so that can be challenging in and of itself. But it's really important you have a good support system to lean on, which is another reason why we work fully in office. It's so important that if you get hung up on, that can be celebrated by the person next to you versus, alone in your basement and just kind of looking around with like not having that camaraderie. So having people to lean on, I think putting everything in perspective, something I tell my SDRs and I tell my managers is one bad month is not the end of the world. In fact, sometimes it's a good thing because you can learn from it. You can remember that feeling and try to avoid it the next time. But I think it's a constant kind of roller coaster, and that's what makes it fun and challenging at times.
Absolutely. Now, for one of our students who may not be living near or at one of the locations that you listed, does the company offer any support for relocation?
It really depends. There can be times where we do. I would say every scenario is unique. If it's still an opportunity you want to pursue, don't let that deter you from reaching out to me, reaching out to anybody, or applying for the role. And then we can definitely have conversations with the hiring manager, with the recruiter. But yes, do we offer it? It can happen. Is it every single time? No. So I think every scenario is unique. And if it's something you really want, I wouldn't let the location stop you.
Absolutely. Next question is, how do you get a job there before you graduate, or do you have to wait until after you graduate? I know this gets a question by a lot of students. They feel like they have to wait until they complete the degree before they can apply for consideration.
That's a great question. No, you do not have to wait until you graduate. The thing that we do ask for is you do have to be graduating within the next year. So we wouldn't want you signing now, and then you wouldn't start with us until 2 to 3 years from now. But let's say you graduate in June, you interview with us in January. That's still a great timeline. So yes, you can absolutely sign before you graduate.
Perfect. And the next question is, how do you think bilingualism, particularly in French or English, can be beneficial in sales strategies and client relations, especially in an increasingly globalized marketplace?
It's extremely helpful. So I speak Spanish, but I will say my Spanish, as far as like tech sales, probably isn't the best. But that company we just acquired is actually called Operatics, and they have presence in EMEA and APAC. Their HQ office is in London, and their co-founder is French. So they do a lot of business in Europe. And so now we are expanding into that to where we're having international SDRs or people in the US calling in a different language. But in any realm of business, that is a super critical skill to have. If you do have it, it's definitely a level up. It's not necessary, but it's definitely a level up and an asset in this economy.
Yeah, perfect. Next question I have for you is, what are some misconceptions that you think people have about sales?
That's a good question. I think one misconception people have is that in sales, if you're not hitting your goals immediately, you're let go, when that's quite often not the time. Now, not how it goes. Are we in a performance-based job? Absolutely. But usually when you hear about people being let go, they're put on some sort of performance improvement plan. They should have the support they need in order to be able to get off of it. I think people think there's not job stability in sales due to that kind of misconception. But usually, you want to work for a company where they have everything in place in order to make you successful. So as you're interviewing, definitely ask questions surrounded around that. Make sure you have the resources in order to succeed, because it shouldn't be that way. The idea is we give you the tools and everything you need in order to be able to implement that and be successful.
Perfect. I have another question, and this one has to do about elevator pitch. So do you need to consistently adjust your elevator pitch based on the stakeholder you're trying to connect with?
That's a great question. I don't think you always have to do that, but I think it's a great idea. I think it depends in the situation that you're in. If you're talking to a hiring manager, it's probably going to stay pretty consistent across the board in that you're trying to highlight your achievements and you're trying to convince somebody to hire you, right? So those are probably going to look pretty similar. But let's say I'm a managing director pitching myself to a client so that they will work for memoryBlue. That's probably going to stay pretty consistent. Unless if I'm talking, like I mentioned, if I'm talking to a CEO, a CRO, I want to give them that bluff, that bottom line up front. If I'm talking to a person in marketing, I'm probably going to add some more details, maybe some more jokes, a little bit more fluff, because that's what's going to resonate with those people. If I'm talking to somebody in sales, maybe I'm really going to talk about my numbers and my performance. So try to speak the language of the person you're speaking with, depending on what you're selling.
Perfect. And what is a common interview mistake that you have seen?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, one is a rambler. So somebody who just talks and talks and talks. I've had times where I've forgotten the question that I was asking with how long they've gone on. I think one of the second mistakes that I see made the most is you really want to expand on your answers. So don't be afraid to have some personality. If we ask you a question, maybe you don't have a direct professional experience related to that. Don't be afraid to use a personal example just to display one of your strengths. But give me details, give me context, while still keeping it concise. I think it can be really challenging to interview someone who gives you something that they achieved and you say, okay, how did you do that? And they're like, I just worked hard. Give me more.
Yeah,
What did you sacrifice? What did you do? And really show me the kind of person that you are that led to you being successful.
stories are key. Yeah.
Mhm.
Next question is, when you were a college student, did you think you would launch a career in sales?
No, I very much had that preconceived notion of a car salesman just being pushy and salespeople being annoying. I still hate when Comcast calls me every day to try to upsell my internet that I barely use because I don't work from home. So no, never thought I was going to be in sales. Always thought I was going to be in marketing or PR. But my dad was actually in sales, and I remember when I got recruited by memoryBlue, he said, Gia, I think you'd be really good at sales. You're good at talking to people, you're competitive, and the only person you have to count on in sales is yourself. So I think you should try it out. Loved the culture, just loved everything I heard about memoryBlue, very much loved that it's designed to be a stepping stone for your career, and I knew I wanted a big career. So ultimately decided to take a chance on it. And the beauty of sales is when you're good at it, you tend to fall in love with it. So once I started seeing some success, I never saw myself going back. But no, never thought I was going to be in sales when I was in college.
All right, and I have one final question for you,
Mhm.
which is going back to the elevator pitch. So what is the best way to start an elevator pitch? Would you start with your degree or university, or is it after you graduate?
So I think it depends, right? I forget who it was that raised their hand and shared, but I really liked that you started off saying that you grew up in India for 6 years, you were living in India for the past 6 years, and then you moved here. But I would say typically I do like to hear about the degree if you're in that entry level role, right? So if I were about to move into a new role, I'm probably not going to start it with I majored in communications and political science. I'm going to talk about, okay, here's my experience. I started at memoryBlue. I was an SDR, or even my most recent experience is that I was a managing director at memoryBlue. So I think use your judgment on that, but also don't be afraid to mix in. I would say keep it 75% professional and 25% personal. People like to know that there are real human beings that they're talking to and hiring, not these robots that are only saying what you think the hiring manager wants to hear.
Oh, and I had another question that just came in. What are some elevator pitch tips for career changers?
I think that's a great idea. Don't hesitate to talk about your career, what you did before, how you were successful, ultimately what made you successful, but really focus on your strengths that made you successful in that career that you think could translate into a new role. So for example, like I mentioned, somebody who's a manager at memoryBlue right now, he was a teacher before. And I actually interviewed him. I remember interviewing him, and he just said, I think my skills of having to simplify things in order to get people to understand my consistency and showing up would translate to this role. So definitely give your background of your career, give your strengths, what you learned. And I think the biggest thing is give the reason why you want to pivot, right? Let's say you were a marine biologist and all of a sudden you want to be in tech sales. You better have a pretty compelling reason as to why you're making this 180. So make sure you give a good reason so that the hiring manager isn't skeptical of that right off the bat.
All right, Jay, there's another question here, but I'm not sure you can answer it, but I'll read out what it says. It says, I
Okay.
just ended my last course in my healthcare management career, and I would like to get more information about IBM, especially in becoming a competent professional. Did you
Like
discuss anything
IBM,
about
our
that?
client.
Yes.
So I don't have a ton of information on IBM. We just worked with them in that we just did outreach on their behalf, but I couldn't give you a ton of insight as to what's actually going on in the organization.
Yeah. And Zeta, I just put in the chat box too a link to IBM's free course offerings where you can develop some technical skills. And that was our last question. Oh, one more question. Jessica asked a question. I really love your career journey. How does your day-to-day look like?
Whew, very busy. But a lot of my day-to-day, I really like to make sure I'm still coaching. So whether I'm actually currently still managing some SDRs, but even if I wasn't, typically 8:30, I like to keep my 8:30 to 9:30 pretty blocked off so I can be present on the sales floor. Something that we do as a company is from 8:30 to 10 a.m. we have what's called a blitz. So all of the SDRs are standing up with their headsets, dialing back to back. That's my time that I really like to coach. I live and breathe coaching. So one thing we can do is we can listen into their calls and give them real-time feedback. So I try to allocate the beginning of my day to that. A lot of my day is one-on-ones with my managers, and in those are strategic sessions on this client who's doing really well. How can we continue to make sure that they stay with memoryBlue? Maybe this client who isn't doing as well, what can we do to get them to stick around to help course correct so that they don't leave the partnership with memoryBlue? I still have one-on-ones with SDRs, so still a lot of coaching sessions, call evaluation sessions, one-on-ones with my boss, and then of course, client calls. So I'm in a lot of client calls every single day, whether it's a weekly touch point, a weekly check-in. Some clients I manage directly, some I'm shadowing my manager so that I can give them feedback on how they handled the call, maybe step in if it's a call where they need some more support. Or it might be things like upselling, more strategic sessions with a client. What's really cool about the work that we do is because we work in sales consulting, a lot of our clients look to us for our expertise when it comes to sales and prospecting. So a lot of those strategic sessions as well. But essentially what my day-to-day looks like is a lot of meetings, a lot of talking to people, and celebrating the wins. And then, of course, administrative things. I run an office, so doing things like the supply order, making sure that everything is up to date in our Salesforce and things like that. So very busy, very fun, very challenging.
Very exciting. I have a couple more questions for you. Do you have any future career plans or big picture goals? How do you plan for your career future, if at all?
Yeah. I would love to be a director of business development at an actual tech company. So I think once I feel like I've learned what I need to get out of memoryBlue, I'd love to actually get into tech and work with. This is the beauty of working at memoryBlue is now I have a network of tons of clients that I can reach out to, and a lot of people in tech tend to switch companies, follow each other around. So I definitely want to stay in leadership. I think I'm built for it, but would love to be a director of business development at an actual tech company. And my ideal way to work, I'd love to work up to, VP of sales someday. I don't think I ever want to be a C-level executive. They work really hard, and I have a lot of respect for them, but I'd like a little bit more work-life balance.
Understandable. All right. And your final question is, if someone's interested in a career with memoryBlue, what is the best way to move forward? Should they apply directly or perhaps reach out to a recruiter?
Both. I think if you reach out over LinkedIn, you're probably more likely to kind of stand out. So don't be afraid to do both. Don't be afraid to reach out to the hiring manager directly. What I would do is follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything you use. And don't be afraid to look up the hiring manager and send them a message, but definitely apply online and reach out. You can find us on LinkedIn very easily.
All right. Thank you so much, Gia. I really appreciated all the information and great tips
Yeah.
today. And I'll hand you over to Dana to finish us up.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jess. And again, Gia, your energy, your experience, we really appreciate everything that you shared with us today. So again, a round of applause for your time. And I know we have about 15 minutes left, but I'm happy to, let anyone sign off if they need to, or if we have any more volunteers that might want to just practice their elevator pitch in front of anyone, I'm happy to stay around. But I'll go ahead and end the recording and just say thank you so much, Gia, again, and we appreciate your time and everything about memoryBlue and teaching us about the elevator pitch today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. It was my pleasure.